Hey, amazing parents, it's Dr. Lindsay here with this week's psychology-based tips on how to effectively handle any high-intensity parenting situation. Whether your toddler has just hit another child, your elementary-age kiddo got into trouble at school today, or your teen arrives home past curfew. Today, I'm going to share with you the 4-step triage plan that I teach parents in my coaching program to guide them to successfully handle any stressful parenting situation, regardless of your child's age. So let's dive right in with step number 1. First, choose to respond rather than react. Strong reactions when your kid messes up won't help the situation and can jeopardize your relationship with your child, making them less likely to seek your support in the future. Now, safety issues are different. If there's an immediate issue and you need to intervene for your child's safety or the safety of another child, by all means, jump right in. Putting safety issues aside, for other types of stressful parenting situations, we have Misty coming to visit us, I suggest taking a slow, deep breath that provides a natural pause before reacting to your child's behavior. Deep breathing is my favorite coping skill to help me respond rather than react to a stressful parenting situation. Now, I talk about a lot of options for coping skills with parents in my private coaching program, and it all comes from this concept of intentional parenting. That's how I think about this idea of making thoughtful choices about how we parent. And choosing to respond before reacting gives you time to think so that you can respond in a manner that's aligned with your parenting goals. So rather than yelling at or shaming your child for hitting, rather than lighting in your child for causing trouble at school, and rather than threatening to never let your child borrow the car again because they came home late, taking that moment's pause gets you ready to remember that your child is learning as they grow and that showing them some grace is a really important part of that learning process. Now, as a bonus, modeling positive behaviors for your child, like these coping skills that we're talking about, in this case, deep breathing. So modeling that for your child by showing them that behavior is allowing you to then use a very powerful psychology tool called observational learning. You can teach your child without words by showing them better behavior. So when you choose to take that deep breath and respond rather than react, they're learning just by watching you, hey, that's a great way to handle a stressful situation, and that can benefit them for years to come. Another bonus is this concept of co-regulation. So just like when they were a baby, Misty's really stealing the show here, just like when they were a baby, and you would cuddle them to soothe them and rock them to soothe them when they were feeling stressed, you can now soothe them and help them to stay calm by using your deep breathing. Now, once you've managed your initial reaction to this stressful parenting situation, it's time to move on to step number 2. Now, first a warning though, if you prefer to use an I'm the boss authoritarian parenting style or a whatever you say, sweetie, permissive approach, then you may have already noticed that this probably isn't going to be the right video for you. The 4 steps that I'm sharing with you today will help you find the perfect balance between support and structure. They represent a balanced parenting approach, which is backed by psychology research as the most effective parenting style for teaching your child healthy boundaries and setting them on a pathway for success in the future, all while maintaining a positive, lifelong parent-child bond. And that's really key to what we're looking for, at least on my channel. So if that sounds like your ideal parenting experience, then let's move on to step number 2. So number 2 is communicating unconditional positive regard. So here we want to validate feelings. Emotions are normal and okay, but behaviors are not always okay. So in these stressful situations, your child has done something that you're not happy with, but the way that they're feeling that led to that behavior or the way they're feeling now after that behavior is okay. It's part of life to have these strong negative emotions. So when you say something like, I see you're upset, but it's not okay to hit, you're showing them that the emotions are okay, but the behavior's not okay. Or it sounds like you had a rough day at school today. Let's talk that through and see what happened. And then we can come up with some better ways to handle that if you encounter that situation again in the future. Or you might say something like, it's hard to pull yourself away from an event, but you're a responsible kid and we agreed that you would be home by 10. So the take-home message here is that your child is good, but they can also learn to make better choices in the future. Boundaries are designed to teach, and I like to talk about this term loving authority figure. So boundaries allow you, when paired with warmth and support, boundaries allow you to be the loving authority figure in your family. So you can clearly state what behavior is okay and what behavior is not okay. Doing so while you're showing your child this support and acceptance is the core concept behind unconditional positive regard. Now, as a bonus, again, you're modeling positive behaviors for your child. You're showing them patience. You're showing them that it's important to have good listening skills, to ask questions before passing judgment. It's important to have empathy. This is a really powerful behavioral psychology principle, this observational learning principle. So this step number 2 is, again, using observational learning. Now, one point to remember is to use calm, clear, and caring speech to help ensure that your child is receiving your message of support and acceptance. This is key to successful communication, and really just small changes can make a huge impact for parents. I've seen it time and time again in my coaching program. Now that you've kept your cool and you've shown your child that you always support them and accept them, it's time to maximize the learning opportunity. And we do that in step number 3. Step number 3 is focused on teaching. And this includes things like emotional intelligence development, behavioral rehearsal, and consequences when appropriate. So there are a lot of important ways to teach your child better behavior. We'll touch on a few key points in this video. First, social skills training. So here, what you're doing is helping your child to, over time, gradually, as they develop and their brain becomes better, able to process higher level cognitive functions, you're teaching your child to take another person's perspective, to see what it's like from little Jimmy's shoes. You're teaching your child to develop empathy by using probing questions like, how do you think it made Johnny feel when you hit him? And you're helping them to brainstorm better alternatives and following that up with behavioral rehearsal. So you're practicing whenever possible. So if you come up with a better alternative, like, hey, next time that Jimmy takes your toy and you get upset, how about instead of hitting him, you say, hey, Mom, I could use a little help over here. Or you say, hey, Jimmy, what if I use that toy for another minute and then you take a turn? And so you're teaching them different ways to solve problems and then asking them to practice that. So you might have them actually practice the words like, Jimmy, may I please use the toy for a minute? And then you can have it. And they're practicing it at home. They're getting used to saying that so that when they're in the moment, it's more likely to just flow naturally, even if they're feeling upset. So that first option is something I call social skills training. The second option is going to be problem solving. And here I like to teach an organized problem solving system called the solve problem solving steps. So it's a 5-step process that can help you to really look at situations and your child look at situations from an organized standpoint, kind of more objectively, stepping back, kind of bird's eye view, and really going into it thoughtfully to come up with the best way to solve problems. So not in the moment, but more when you have a little bit of time and you can figure out the best solution. So I won't get into all the details in this video, but I'll briefly tell you the acronym SOLVE. So SOLVE is S, which stands for state the problem clearly. O, which stands for brainstorming all the possible options for how to solve the problem. L stands for list the pros and cons of each option. V stands for decide on the very best option. And E stands for evaluate the outcome and try again as needed. So you can go back. You had all those different options in the O step. You can go back and choose a different one. You chose the one that looked best when you went through the L step, the list the pros and cons. But sometimes it doesn't work out and you circle back and you try another one and keep going until you find the right solution. Now, I'm going to do a future video on the solve problem solving steps very soon. So if this is something that you would like to learn more about, both to help you in your parenting and also to help your child learn how to solve problems in a more organized fashion, you can subscribe. The third option I want to mention today in terms of this training step number 3, is coping skills. So here you want to try to get a sense of what caused the unwanted behavior from your child in the first place. And then you want to figure out how to help them to better manage that stressful situation on their own. So you're helping them to learn how to better ride the wave of human emotions by using coping skills. And there are a number of different coping skills you can use. I'll mention a few. So one thing, if a child starts to feel upset, you can teach them to do some muscle work. They can start with a really simple one called clench and release. And so they may clench their fists as hard as they can and then release. And with that release, you can help them to kind of visualize the negative feelings leaving their body, their shoulders lowering, them feeling more calm. So that's the clench and release strategy for when kids are feeling angry, upset, frustrated. Another coping skill that you can teach them is visualization. So when they're in a situation, they're feeling bored or annoyed or what have you, they can focus on a calming place. So for my kids, most of them envision a lake that we love or we go to every summer. And so if they're feeling bored, they're getting frustrated, a little overwhelmed, they might take a moment, maybe close their eyes and really envision that scene, which is just so relaxing and just ingrained in them. So if your kids can think of a situation like that, that for them is very relaxing, that can become part of their visualization process. Another one would be to use a mantra. So if you have a kid who's a little more impulsive, like, oh, I'm just going to stay out late past my curfew and not worry about checking with mom and dad. So you might help them to develop a mantra. And one that my impulsive kiddo has used is just stop and think. If something feels just the slightest bit off, like maybe I shouldn't be doing this, stop and think. And this ties into some of the problem solving steps. Stop and think. And what are my options in this situation? And let's really make a thoughtful plan moving forward. Mantras come in all shapes and sizes. So maybe it's not impulsivity that your child struggles with. Maybe it's anxiety. And then it would be a different mantra that would resonate for them. Now, I have a whole worksheet on different options that parents can help their children to try in these situations and my coaching program. And what you do is you see what works best for your kid. It may not be that all three of those are going to work for your kid, but you have them try on different situations and see which one works best for them. And then they can really dive into that. Now, I do want to mention one more thing in this training step, and that's this idea of consequences. So remember that balanced parenting involves support and structure. Structure, like the boundaries that you use, are designed to teach. And when they're done in a supportive way, then you become the loving authority figure in the family. Now, consequences can be negative or positive. And in psychology, we call negative consequences punishment. And they're designed to help prevent a behavior from happening again in the future. And this can be done by adding something unpleasant, like a child having to apologize to their teacher for disrupting the class, or by taking away something that is pleasant, like losing car privileges if you come home late. Whenever possible, consequences should be natural, so closely matched or linked to the unwanted behavior. It's not always possible, but that's a great goal. Now, typically, I don't recommend using consequences for first-time offenses. Often, children are remorseful already, and they've learned a lot from the situation, and no other consequences needed. It's much better to use consequences when they're stated in advance. So you might say something like, if this ever happens again in the future, then, and you list the specific outcomes. So they know exactly what to expect if they make that poor choice again in the future. Now, the fourth and final step in this parenting triage plan happens after the stressful situation has concluded, and that is monitoring. So tomorrow, next week, next month, what you want to do is follow up, circle back to what happened, circle back to the resolution, and this has a few different purposes. You're showing your child that you care. You're showing that you're keeping an eye on the situation, so it helps them to know, okay, I really do need to be making sure I don't make that choice again, or I really need to be doing whatever we decided was the right solution. You're giving appropriate attention to an important matter, and these are gentle reminders to help keep their behavior in line. And third, and most importantly, you're reinforcing the alternate behaviors. The positive consequence is coming in here. So maybe you had a negative consequence before, possibly not, but here you're definitely going to have a positive consequence. So you're doing reinforcement, like, great job getting home before your curfew tonight, the next time that they come home on time. Or, wow, I saw you got upset with Johnny and it was so great you asked for help, rather than hitting. This 4-step triage plan will help you to resolve any stressful situation with your child at any age in a supportive way that also teaches healthy boundaries, guiding your child towards a successful future while ensuring a lasting, loving bond between you. Let me know in the comments how it works for you, or if you find adding any other steps is helpful in your household. If you want to learn more about how to handle stressful situations with your child, drop a like below to let me know so that I can create more content like this. And in the meantime, I'll recommend a video where I dive more into how to gently yet effectively use consequences with your child, and one mistake that you want to be sure to avoid. You can check it out next. Keep up the good work on your amazing parenting journey.